It's funny how plays lead us to things that have been forgotten. And in some ways, I'm also struck by audiences. Many people have heard about Bobby Kennedy's speech, but they may not have ever listened to it. It's the same thing when I think about Dr. King's death. I am, of course, not the first writer to have taken on the subject, the tragedy of Dr. King's death on April 4th, 1968, nor will I be the last. It is an opportunity for us to look at this event through a very particular lens, through a family that I created, inspired by all of these many interviews.
I was a 17-year-old junior in high school from Warren Central on the east side of Indianapolis, and my brother picked me up from a junior achievement meeting and said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually see Bobby Kennedy. At that point, we knew nothing about Martin Luther King's death, and so we stopped by at the park with many other people that night, excited to hear Bobby Kennedy, and what we heard was the very sobering and sad news that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. What I came to understand that night was the power of words and a message to speak to an audience, to tell them what they needed to hear, and take a crowd that, for understandable reasons, would have been angry, disheartened, and to try to use words to bring some meaning to what was a night that had no meaning at all to them at that point.
You hear a lot about Martin Luther King being shot, but they don't really ever go into detail in history classes about what that day felt like.
Right when they said Martin Luther King had got shot, when they were playing the audio, and I just right that moment, and everybody, the shock, and I'm a girl.
I felt that. I didn't get choked up, but I felt it.
I was really surprised to learn about all the things that happened here in our backyard, here in Indianapolis, literally down the street. Like, it was interesting to hear that the people who we read about in history books and who we see on television were actually here and stepped on the same ground we stepped on, because that's not something a lot of people in a lot of cities and a lot of states get to feel. And so it was inspiring, and it was also, it made me feel proud that I was from here.